I'm here with Russell Thomas, a young and upcoming and already well respected tenor who is playing Hoffman in The Tales of Hoffman by Jacques Offenbach in a production by the COC. Thanks for speaking with us.
Thank you for interviewing me.
I want to go back to your roots. You're a native of Miami, which
Yes.
is not a city that immediately jumps to mind when one thinks of the theater or the the opera scene. How did you get into opera? What led you into this world?
Well, actually, Miami has maybe the sixth or seventh oldest opera company in America.
Really?
And in terms of budget, when I was when I was very young, in terms of budget, they would bring people like Pavarotti to sing there. I think he and Joan Sutherland made their U.S. debuts in Miami and Lucia di Lammermoor. You know, one of my first operas I ever saw had who was in it? James Morris was there. Was in Flying Dutchman. I also saw Simon Estes, great opera singers there. But when I first got interested in opera is coming home one day and turning on the radio and hearing opera on the radio. That was my first exposure to classical music at all, and especially opera. We had a classical music station in Miami, WTMI, and one day after school I was just flipping through channels and I heard classical singing, so I stopped and listened, and that changed my life completely.
Did you say, Mom, Dad, this is what I wanted? I want to learn how to do this? Or?
Well, not until after I saw my first opera. When I was maybe 12, I saw Carmen, and that's when I was like, "This is what I want."
That's a good introduction to the opera.
This is what, especially for a 12-year-old,
Yeah.
to see all of that energy and vibrance and colors and on stage and dance, and it had everything. The drama, the music, the dance, the visual aspects of it, and everything. It's great.
Right. When do you say? Would you say you made the transition from an aspiring singer to a singer? Do you feel as though there was a moment when you realized, this is not my dream. I'm living the dream.
When I guess, I don't know. That's a tough question, but I would take it when I went to re-audition. I was in the chorus of the Miami Opera when I was in conservatory, and the administration heard me singing in the re-audition for the chorus, and they asked me if I wanted to do a role in their young artist production on the main stage, and that was when I knew that I must have had something special. If I think I was maybe 20 or 21, they recognized that I had some sort of vocal talent or vocal gifts that they could use. Maybe they just needed to fill a slot. But for me, it was at that point where I realized, that something was there, and I took it more seriously at that point. Because before that, I was a normal college student, partying 6 nights out of the week, and waking up right before going to sleep right before I should have woken up to go to class the next morning. But then the next step, I would say, was when I auditioned for James Levine and was accepted into the Met Young Artist Program. That was when I knew, that there was something, that it could be even more than I had ever expected.
For those not familiar with Tales of Hoffman, tell us a little bit about the story of the opera and about the musical style.
The story of the opera is it's very complicated. It's a guy who is a writer. He's struggling with his writing, and his muse comes whenever he struggles with his writing. He chooses to get drunk, but his muse is trying to keep him focused. So he and his girlfriend are having some issues, and as he's getting drunk, he goes to the bar, and his friends are like, "Oh, well, tell us a story." And he said, "Well, I'll tell you a story. It's about 3 women, and those 3 women are really one woman, but these are all different aspects of this woman. So as he's telling this story, he's drawn into the physicality of it, and basically drawn into the tales, as if you're watching a movie and someone starts recalling something and they do a flashback. Mm-hmm. So that's what the opera is, and it's innocent girl Lampia, the artist who he's most in love with is Antonia, and the muse is really pushing him towards that story. because the pain of it will give him inspiration, is what she says in the end. Then there's Giulietta, who is a courtesan, and he's just completely lusting after her. There's no emotional connection there. It's purely lust. And in the end, it all sort of culminates. And then there's the evil character, which is his nemesis, which is the villains. And then you have the comic character, which is the servants. But in all, it's basically a poet who likes his liquor and is in love with a woman, and he's having a complicated relationship, but that complicated relationship is going to help him be a better artist. Sort of like life, real life.
Yeah.
The complicated relationships or complicated emotional periods in our lives make us better at what we do, I think. I mean, I found that to be the case.
And he wouldn't be a true art or a true poet, rather, if there wasn't some kind of, bottle and women issues.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hoffman presents this, not your character, but Hoffman the opera, presents this idea, at least in Acts 1 and 2, that singing can be a destructive force. It, without giving away too much, it leads to the downfall of Olympia and Antonia.
But it's not the singing that's the downfall of Olympia. It's the glitches in her software. But for Antonia, and it's also just not the singing; it's that art in itself. Giving so much to art can kill you. It's either I think Hoffman is asking her to choose at one point. You either me or your career. Which do you want? And she chooses him, but then the devil comes and makes her choose art. Her mother was an artist. She feels compelled to be an artist because of the long line and her talent. I'm sure many artists have at one point or another had doubts about, is this the right thing for me? Should I be having a family and be an accountant, or should I follow my singing path? So I think it's not necessarily that music is a destructive force. I think it's that art can be a destructive force. And I think art is just used to tell that story. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. But
do you ever feel confronted by that choice of having to pursue what is an incredibly demanding schedule and kind of a almost a wandering life, or are you ever tempted to kind of give that up and settle down?
Actually, I do. I mean, I'm 35 now. I feel like I want to be a father, but I also love my career. I love what I'm doing, and I am conflicted by that because when you're in this business or have this career, there's not a whole lot of time for cultivating relationships because you're in one city for this amount of time, and then you go to another city for this amount of time. You're in some strange hotel or some strange apartment every month or every week, depending on what kind of career you have. And it can be grueling. And how does one have a family and maintain that kind of schedule? So it is a tough decision. And I find myself now at 35 saying, not is this what I want to do, but am I going to be able to have both of what I want? I want to have a family. I want to have a child. I would love to have a son and introduce him to music and all those great things, but I love my career, And some people say you can have both, but I don't think you can have both successfully. It's a very tough thing. John really does it amazingly, but everybody can't do that.
Yeah. There's an increasing focus in the opera world for the theatrical elements of any given opera to be given a lot of weight. It's no longer the kind of park and bark sort of style that was popular in the probably from the early 20th century right to the the 60s or 70s. How do you personally strike the balance between your responsibilities as a musical and dramatic performer? Do the two compete, or do they inform each other?
Well, it depends on if you ask the Canadian critics. But I think I try to, for me, it's, first the music. The music is first in all things. And I think for me, I can bring the drama through my vocalism. My technique gives me the ability to bring the drama through my vocalism, even if it's not as much so physically. For a role like Hoffman that's on stage the whole night, if I'm throwing myself around the stage all night long, it's going to be very tiresome. It's not like, I mean, the villains are on stage all night, but he comes in and he goes, you know? He comes in his scene, he does his, works his magic or evil, and he goes. But Hoffman is there the entire time. You can't park and bark. I don't believe that you should. Anybody should in this day and age park and bark. But you have to be true first to the vocalism. And sometimes that means making an ugly sound to prove a point. But the vocalism is first. But opera is a culmination of all the art forms. It's a visual art. It's, drama. It's music. But the music has to be first, in my opinion. And the drama needs to be able to feed the music. Or the music, because the music already feeds the drama. So the drama needs to be able to help you do more with it. And if it gets in the way, then it becomes, there are a host of other issues that can come on stage.
Opera is arguably becoming more of an inclusive community, but there's still a disparity between the number of Caucasians and non-Caucasians, at least, proportionally speaking, in the opera world. Do you feel that's ever been an issue in your career? Do you feel that that is an issue that needs to be addressed? Where do you feel that that disparity comes from?
I don't know, but I know that it has been an issue in my own career. Mm-hmm. The fact that I'm a Black American tenor that sings romantic repertoire has hindered me getting certain jobs or getting certain places in my career. To quote somebody else, not myself, they said, if you were white, you'd have been a superstar a long time ago. But that is, that's their opinion. I can't only say that it's because of the fact that I'm a Black man. It has also to do with my weight, being that I'm not as slim. I don't look 17 years old on stage. That's an issue for some producers. But I can't really complain because I'm a busy singer. I've cultivated relationships with people that like what I do, and which is all you can really do in this business. I try to be as good as I can be with what I have, and show people what I can do. And some people love it, and some people don't like it so much. So, but there is a racial disparity. But, a statistic that someone also pointed out to me is that in the 60s in America, when we had segregation, you had more African American singers singing at the top 5 opera houses than you do today.
Really?
Yeah, that's a big problem. Yeah. I don't think, how can it be addressed? That's a question that I don't have the answer to, because it's such a subjective art form. You can't say, well, this guy's better than this guy. You can't really say that. Although I've won a lot of competitions, it's always a little bit bogus to me to say that this tenor is better than this tenor, or this singer is better than that singer, for whatever reason, because it's all so different, So I would hate to be the guy that says, well, if I were Black, I'd probably make either more money or have a larger career. But at the same time, there are some realistic elements to it, unfortunately.
Do you feel that there's some countries that are more open to that idea than others? I'm thinking that in Canada, probably our greatest opera star at the moment is Misha Bruegger-Gossman, who's also a Black Canadian. Right. And no one really bats an eye about casting her in pretty much any part she wants. Do you feel as though that might be more related to America, or is it really pervasive across culture, or opera as a culture? I think it's opera as a culture, maybe even art as a culture, because I mean in film you have the same thing. For instance, there's never really been a problem with African American women or Black women on stage. They've been more welcoming to Black women than they have to been Black men, over, just historically. So I can't really compare myself to Misha. She's a talented artist, of course, but at the same time, Black women have always had a little bit more of a chance than Black men did. However, in
you say, are there countries that are more or less? I don't know. I know that for a while, a lot of Black American singers would go to Europe and have a huge career. Even the stars of the American opera theater got their starts a lot of times in Europe. Is that noise gonna interfere?
Oh, it's fine.
All right.
Adds to the atmosphere. We're in downtown Toronto.
Right. Got their starts in Europe. But after the 80s and the fall of the wall and opened up to the Eastern Europeans, even that now is less prominent. But I have had a lot of success in Europe, and I'm continuing to work in Europe. So I mean, again, I can't complain because I do have a good career, but at the same time, I have to wonder sometimes, would it be any different, if I were a white singer or anything other than a black singer?
Yeah. I'm going to throw a kind of a trio of questions at you.
Okay.
You've had a quite an extensive career already for someone who's 35. Your resume is very impressive. What has been your favorite role so far? Your least favorite role, and what is your bucket list role? A role that you would love to play that you haven't yet.
My favorite role so far, I have to say Hoffman, because it's the largest role I've done. The music is exquisite. It really gives me a chance to show what I can do. All the strengths of my voice lie in this role, in this part. And I think dramatically I do a pretty good job. I connect with this character on a personal level. So I love it. Least favorite, I don't know if I really have a least favorite role. I mean, even my debut at the Met was one line, but it was my Met debut. So
how about most challenging?
Most challenging? Oh, that is also maybe Hoffman or Oedipus and Oedipus Rex. Musically, it's a beast, and it's also a very long part. He just doesn't stop singing. It's beautiful, beautiful music, but I had the opportunity to perform it for the first time with the Boston Symphony Orchestra and James Levine conducting in January of last year, and it was an amazing experience for me, but that was a big challenge for me. Bucket list role? Oh, there's so many. José and Carmen, for instance. It's a role that, of the first opera I ever saw, I sat in the audience and actually watched, was Carmen, and I loved that character, and I love just the visceral nature and of love, and what drove him to kill her in the end was also this deep love and affection for her, and jealousy. I'm a jealous man. I can relate to that character as well. So that probably would be, and then there's Otello, and then there's Calaf and Turandot. These are roles that I dream of singing.
Well, at least you've left yourself a lot of options for
Yeah.
for future pleasure.
Right. There's so many. I mean, there's so much great repertoire, and there's some things that I know I could never sing just because my voice doesn't have facility for it. That I would just love to do. But those three operas are my favorites.
And what's next for you in the immediate future?
A world premiere with John Adams and the Los Angeles Philharmonic. John Adams, the American composer, is writing an oratorio that he's writing a part for me in, the Gospel According to the Other Mary, and he wrote me the role of Lazarus, which I just got Act 2 a couple of nights ago, so I have to learn that. I have 5 days off before rehearsals start, before my last performance here in Toronto and the first rehearsal in LA, 5 days off.
Although that's very exciting, considering everyone's
nice.
been waiting a long time for him to do some kind of a follow-up to Nixon in China.
Well, he's done some follow-ups to Nixon in China, but this one is...
Right. There was a piece about Einstein?
There was about the atomic bomb that he premiered in San Francisco and went to the Met, Dr. Atomic. Yeah. And then I did a world premiere of another opera of his, A Flowering Tree, in 2007, that we've done again and again and made a recording with the London Symphony Orchestra a couple of years ago. And... yes, so this is actually considered a follow-up to his oratorio El Nino, which was about the birth of Christ. And now this is about the crucifixion from the point of view or perspective of Mary Magdalene, which is so exciting. The music is so exciting. I'm enjoying it.
That sounds like it would make a great play, if let alone an opera.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or choreo. Yeah.
Or yeah. Well, we're gonna do stage performances of it on tour around the world next year, but this year is just in concert in LA, just to get the music under our belts. And
Excellent.
yeah.
Well, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.